and welcome to our service. So, as I interrupted Jan, the topic is different than what the um, greater community of New Thought did. So the today's topic is not circulation in wild strawberries, because frankly, I don't know what wild strawberries are or what that even means. So you'll see the theme is listed above that. This is about conscious connection, creating a year of alignment. And so I'm asking, what if this year isn't asking for effort, but awareness? Drawing from New Thought principles and embodied practices, we will explore how consciousness isn't something you strive for, but as a living relationship already present within you. Learn how to become aligned, grounded, and open to what wants to emerge. So, the reason why I'm doing this topic is because I am a almost lifelong self-improvement person. I was the 16-year-old that was stalking the self-help sections of the bookstore, always looking for some way of trying to find relief from the way that I was living, thinking, being, and feeling. And so I love a new year, boy. I love a new year. Let's get in there, get cracking. Let's get some changes going. And to top it off, my birthday is January 5th. So it's a doubled. Okay. So it's like, wow, not only new year for everybody, wow, it's new year for me. I got to get going, got to get cracking, got to change. But I want to ask you, beyond thinking about what I need to fix, what do I need to become, what do I need to do differently? What if instead we could be in the question of how can I feel more deeply connected to that which has created me? So, usually in New Thought, we're in what I call a perpetual state of telling, right? So, spiritual mind treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer, in that we are telling God, the universe, source, spirit, what we want to experience, what we want to have, how we want to feel, how we want to be. So we do that through this method of treatment and through affirmations and visualizations and other ways. We are injecting into this impersonal feeling of consciousness, this material of creation, what we want to have an output come out to us. I do think that we can kind of get stuck in that perpetual telling mode because as we begin this year, I'm going to invite you to remember that you are not behind. You are not late. And you are not missing anything essential. Because from that perpetual state of telling, often is coming from a place of feeling disconnected. Okay. Feeling that I don't have that thing. I am late. I am behind. I do need something that's not here. And sometimes when we are in that, we are just perpetuating the energy of not enough. You are in conversation with life, and that conversation is constantly ongoing. Ernest Holmes reminds us life is a mirror, and we'll reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. And I would also add that life also reflects how we listen. When we listen with compassion, life softens and we become the recipients of more compassion. And honestly, y'all, with the week that has been going on in this country and around the world, we've got two choices. We can move into the consciousness of righteous indignation, of aggression, of violence, or we can move in the direction of softening in a world that needs our softness. Now, is that easy to do? No. I'm a pretty aggressive person. I'm a lot like my father, who was a very aggressive person. And I have a lot of anger in me, generally speaking. I think it is part of my normal temperament. There are times that that anger has fueled me to make changes, to confront truths that needed to be done. There are other times that that anger has compromised me in a lot of ways. Okay. However, it is imperative that we process our grief, our sadness, and our anger about what we are seeing reflected into the world, because what we are seeing is what people have input into consciousness, and we are seeing the manifestation of that. And so we can then infuse consciousness with compassion. We can listen with curiosity. We listen with curiosity, life reveals more of itself. And when we listen with trust, we begin to feel supported rather than separate. So, as we all move forward into this year, perhaps the invitation is simple: less forcing, more listening, less striving, more allowing. Consciousness doesn't respond to pressure. I can attest to this because, believe me, I've tried it a number of different ways. If I could strong arm the universe and make it bend to my will to give me what I want and what I feel I deserve, then I would not be sitting in my one bedroom apartment that I'm sitting in right now. Okay. Life would probably look very, very different for me. It doesn't respond to pressure, because to pressure is to believe in lack or unworthiness. Because why would we pressure anyone or anything to do our bidding? That pressure comes from a belief of it won't be given to me, or it's going to be hard. So when we confront that within us, when we get that feeling inside of us that that's it, I got to make this happen. If we look at what is behind that, instead, we can go to our relationship with consciousness and move into a place of a softer faith. So, what if the beginning of this year is not a starting line, but a deepening of that conversation? A conversation between you and life itself. In New Thought teachings, consciousness is not something outside of us. It is the very medium through which life expresses. We are not separate from it. We are participating in it. And I want to just say again, this is not easy when we are seeing madness in the world. And we are seeing madness. When we know within our hearts that all people are our brothers, sisters, and family. When we are seeing and then see everything that is counteracting that very innate belief that we have, that's not necessarily coming from something we were taught, although we may have been. I believe it's coming from our internal truth of knowing that we are all connected. So if we are all connected, then we are all family. Ernest Holmes also said, we live in a universe that is friendly, responsive, and alive. It is not against us. It is for us. It waits upon our recognition. Now, is this an easy thing to say after the week that we've just had, that we live in a friendly universe? No, but I also know that it is the truth. I also know that it is the truth that we are living in. And that for the reflection of a friendly universe that's responsive and alive, it is imperative that we bring softness into that consciousness, like a soothing, healing balm to soothe over all of the rawness and the rough edges of the times that we are living in. So, what if this year is not asking you to push harder, but to listen more closely? When we slow down enough to listen, something subtle happens. We begin to notice what has been trying to speak to us all along through our bodies, our longings, our fatigue, our joy, our environment, those things that we think of as signs, right? You're thinking about something. I wonder if I should do this. And then suddenly there's signs everywhere that are pointing you in one direction or the other. It's a reflective of being in the question and being open to listening and getting an answer. Listening is not passive, it is deeply, deeply creative. So, I have a friend, Nicole, who lives in Michigan. And last March, we decided to come together to do the full 12 weeks of the book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Now, this is a classic self help book. It's been out for 30 years. It actually sells more copies now than it did 30 years ago, if you can believe it. And it's a 12-week program that you go through step by step to clear creative blocks. So originally, the book was really centered around blocked creatives, people who wanted to write the book but couldn't, people who wanted to act more and go to auditions but couldn't do it, people who were sabotaging their creative efforts. But the truth is, we are all creators. We are all the artists of our lives. And so I did the book in the late 90s, probably when it had been out for a few years, and struggled my way through it. And so Nicole and I decided we're going to do this together. We're going to meet every week. We're going to do the assignments. We basically formed a class for the two of us. And I realized a couple of things that um, by the way, we didn't finish until November. So if you want to add up 12 weeks between March and November, it's a lot more than 12 weeks because life be lifing, y'all. Life be lifing. I had stuff going on. I was sick all summer. She had stuff going on. But we just kept showing up and doing what we were able to do until we, what I say, limped through the finish line, right? We did complete it. And what I realized is that a couple of things that in my late 20s, I couldn't understand what Julie was really talking about. And that what she was writing now was really, really, really powerful. I got it on a very different level. I also was able to complete the morning pages, which is where you do free writing for 3 pages in the morning when you first get up. I was able to do that pretty consistently, except for when I was really sick. That a lot came out of that. And I also was surprised that what because I went into the book with a little bit of an ego, a little bit of an attitude. I was like, this is so pedestrian. This is so, this isn't for an advanced spiritual master such as myself. But I will tell you that the questions, the journaling revealed some things that I had not been conscious of. So the material rose up to meet me exactly where I was, and I definitely got a lot out of it. And so when we finished, we decided we wanted to keep going. And so we then started doing the book, The Listening Path from Julia Cameron, which is an artist's way program, 6 weeks. We thought, okay, 6 weeks. This is going to be a lot easier than 12, and we'll actually get it done in 6 weeks. We're on week 4. We started in October. So there you go, guys. There you go. All right. We're limping along. We're not being perfectionists about it. We're doing the best that we can. And I didn't enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed The Artist's Way. I found some of it tedious and boring. But I recognize the point is that we have to slow down to listen. She does a lot of these long passages. She lives in New Mexico, and she writes these long passages about walking her dog, and there's the bird on the brim, and the ray of sunshine is hitting in. And I was like, listen, unless this book comes with magic mushrooms, this is not really going to work for me. Okay, but Julie doesn't need magic mushrooms because she's in that state of awareness, and so she talks about 6 different types of listening. Listening to our environment, listening to others. The listening to others is something I think about often because when I'm working in my client sessions, often a client will say I had one session with them 4 years ago and they decide to come back. And we'll start talking and they'll say something about Jane. And I'll say, oh, yeah, Jane, your cousin who lives in Pittsburgh. And they'll be like, how do you remember that? I have a terrible short-term memory, but I've got a pretty good long-term memory. But the reason why I remember is because I am listening with 100% of my being when I am with my clients. The healing starts with that before I've said a word or done a technique. When we are fully present, we do remember. I had a friend of mine say, I go to these streaming services and I look at some show and I think, oh, I'd like to watch that. And then I pull it up and it said, oh, do you want to watch this again? And she had no memory of watching it the first time. And I said, it's because you weren't watching, you were watching. In other words, you were watching, you were on this, you were interrupting, you were da da da, you weren't actually fully paying attention. So, listening to others is a skill set that modern life has really put a dent into. So it's really important that we work on that. She talks about listening to our higher selves. Listening beyond the veil is really great because Julia tries to like tamper down her woo-woo stuff, but it comes out sometimes in these little controlled instances. So she talks about speaking to the people we love who are no longer in physical form and continuing those relationships. She talks about listening to our heroes and then finally listening to silence. So when I thought about listening to our higher selves and listening to our heroes, I thought of an exercise in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And if you're not familiar with that book, it's probably 100 or more years old or something. It's very, very old. Napoleon Hill was alive during the Great Depression, and he recognized that there were people who were prospering even amidst this horrifying economic depression that was going on. And so he kind of went on an interview tour. If it was happening today, he would have been doing a podcast about it, right? And he went around and he interviewed all these people about what they were doing. And out of that, he found principles and practices that these people were following. And so the last thing that he talks about, he says, this is the most important thing that I adopted from all of these people. And, he encourages people to do it. It is called the Invisible Council or the Cabinet of Invisible Counselors. So this is a mental technique where you vividly imagine a boardroom, a team of counselors that are there for you, that are coming from historical figures, celebrities. They can be living or deceased. It's people that you admire, people that are your heroes, and you bring them into this council and you hold imaginary council meetings where you go in and you ask them about what do I do with my career, or what do I do with this, or what do I do with that, and you listen to how these people respond. And you ask questions, you get guidance, and then you try to mentally embody their qualities. So you reshape your character by imitating, well, how would Jimmy Carter act in this moment? How would Oprah act in this moment? How would this person carry themselves? What would that person do? And in that way, you open to listening to guidance, okay? The reason why it doesn't matter if they're living or deceased is because it is not that person. It is the consciousness of what they represent to you. If I interviewed each and every one of you and asked, what would, what is the qualities that you admire in Oprah? Let's just say Oprah. We might have 15 different answers to that question, right? Someone may admire her ability to make money. Someone may admire her ability to be honest. Someone else may admire something else about her, right? What we are seeing in people we admire are the qualities that are alive within ourselves. And just like the shadow, when someone is irritating or annoying us, and it often could be a projection of our own qualities that we can't look at and see in ourselves. So we see them in that other person, like, that's really annoying. Point it back at you. See if you have that within you. It also happens with light characteristics. Often we emulate and admire people who have the same qualities we have within ourselves, but we don't think that we have them. So we have our heroes that we look up to as some kind of superior beings. But what I want to tell you is everything that is within them that we admire within ourselves. So I'm going to encourage you all to just try it. Try to create your imaginary council. Come up. He did 9 to 10 figures. That's a little overwhelming for an ADD person like me. I think I'm going to make 5 or 6 people. Think about people you really look up to, who you really admire, who, if you could go to any person in the world, living or deceased, and ask them for advice, who would you come up with? And then bring them together in your mind. He would do it at night. When we're tired, the conscious mind is tired, the subconscious mind is more easily able to access. And then what's going to happen is our higher self and universal intelligence can funnel through the hands, the faces, the mouths of these people that we are imagining. Because consciousness is impersonal, but our relationship with consciousness is the most personal relationship there could ever be. I often tell clients and students, you need to have something that you can commune with that represents spirit. I said, find a deity that you love or make one up, but have something that has a face and a mouth and hands that you can commune with. How do you commune with consciousness? Oh, I don't know. Hello, consciousness. It's our brains aren't designed for that. We are designed to be in relationship with that which has a body. And so find something that works for you that has a body, and then meet with that counsel and see what information you can get. Be willing to ask the question and listen and see what spirit has for you. And then as you're working on your goals, right? As you're working on the things that you'd like to create this year or heal this year or transform this year, you're going to be getting guidance and help and assistance from all that is. And now there's no striving, there's no rolling the boulder up the mountain. It's simply a gentle unveiling of the next step and the next step and the step after that. So we go about creating in this gentle, supportive way that strengthens our trust and our faith in that which has created us and everything that is. So I offer this to you as a different way of getting guidance. Better than TikTok, better than the Instagram videos, probably better than any podcast there could ever be, because that counsel is assembled for you. It knows you. It knows you better than you know yourself. It knows everything that's ever been forgotten. It knows every hair on your head. It knows every desire in your heart. So when you are communing with that, talk about personalized advice. Talk about personalized guidance. In a world in which we have way too much information that can literally swallow us whole, we can drill it down and create our own dream team of spiritual advisors that can help us to guide us throughout this year, to protect us, to watch over us, right? To speak through us. Because the thing is that it's not going to end at the council meeting that you're having. That guidance is going to continue all throughout the day. And you're going to hear something. You're going to be driving in your car and you're going to get this deep impulse to go in the opposite direction. And you're going to realize you just missed some big accident. That happens when we are in relationship with spirit, not just telling it, not just using the universe like a giant vending machine and inputting what we want to get out, but by being in relationship with creation itself and allowing that creative force to move through us. So I offer that to you as a suggestion that's counteractive to the go, 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 get, make, force, to embody spirit and allow spirit to direct us forward. So let's close this up with a prayer. So I move into that letting go phase where I turn off everything outside of me and I move into the still small voice within, to that power, to that presence that lives, moves, and breathes as me and all around me, bringing into consciousness that feeling of deep connection where I recognize that I am more than my body. I am more than what I think of as problems. I am beyond everything that concerns me. I am a piece of the infinite living presence. And this living presence meets the living presences of everyone that is on this call, everyone that's listening to the recording, and anyone that's never even heard of this. I am one with oneness. You are one with oneness. And as we move into that, I allow that spirit of oneness, that this knowledge to soften me, to help me to relax, to regulate my nervous system back into a place of peace and safety. To remember that regardless of what I see outside of myself, all is well. All is well. And together, we envision a world that works for everyone, in which everyone is fed and clothed and safe and loved and accepted and able to be who they are. That we imagine a world without walls and boundaries, where we live as one human family, one embodiment of the spiritual essence that each of us is. And so, what I know on our behalf as we move into this year, that each of us is open to developing that relationship with spirit, not just from a place of asking or telling, but from a place of receiving and listening, of being in the question and allowing divine guidance to flow through, that most unique, most personalized guidance that we could ever receive. And allowing that guidance to flow through each of us, I am trusting and knowing that we are guided into a year of greater health and greater prosperity, greater love, greater self-love, greater love of God, greater love of others. And that we are in creative self-expression because we are knowing that we are simply the hands, the feet, the eyes of God. And so, with enormous gratitude for this coming together, for this knowledge, for the softening that I feel that is moving through me, I move into that place of surrender. What a great news that I don't have to have it all figured out or make any of this happen, and neither do any of you. That the power that has created all that is or could ever be certainly is creating all of this. So we let go, we allow. We allow love to move through us in the circumstances of our lives, to bring order, to bring peace, to bring harmony. And so I surrender as the word has been spoken. We know that it is so. And join with me by saying, and so it is. Amen.